Hello, I'm Amy Lasik. I'm the Executive Director of Continuing Education at Kirkwood Community College, and I'm excited today to bring Lauren Chalupski-Cannon to talk a little bit about communication. I didn't know this until recently, but June is actually Effective Communication Month. And so we thought it would make a lot of sense to have a chat with our really good friend, Lauren, and talk a little bit about communication, given that this is one of her strength areas and an area that she brings to a lot of our clients. So Lauren, if you just want to talk a little bit about who you are and why you chose communication as an area that you were interested in.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Lauren Cannon, and I am a trainer and coach with Kirkwood Corporate Training. I have been working with them for, over 15 years. Would you believe that? I do have a variety of courses that I teach, but it has seemed that now things are kind of moving in the direction of communication classes being kind of in high demand. And I love talking about communication. I think we human beings are such fascinating creatures. And we are naturally built as egocentric, which, you can look at that as positive or negative. We'll look at that as something we can work with. I know I'm creating this message or giving this message. I know exactly what my intention is. But so often, especially in our writing, the message doesn't translate well to our audience. And that could be because of grammar, punctuation, the way it's worded, phrase, maybe the way the tone is interpreted. And so I just think picking that apart and kind of learning a little more about that and learning more about our own patterns and our own style of writing can really help us kind of craft our messages so the intention is understood. So the message is interpreted in the way we intended. So I just think it's a really interesting topic and so much fun to teach and learn about.
Yeah, it's very fascinating and how it plays in everything that you do every day.
Absolutely. And we just think, oh, that message was so clear. Why did I get the message back? Whoa, like this is pretty harsh. Is there something that I maybe communicated that inspired that sort of a response from my audience? And usually the answer is yes.
But we all have gone through so much in the last couple of years. Could you talk a little bit about what you've seen regarding communication and everything that we've gone through in the last few years?
Oh, yes, absolutely. When people started working from home and companies still wanted to offer training and development, I was approached and saying, hey, do you think you could translate your business writing class specifically because people were at home using emails so much more often as your mode of communication? Sometimes your first opportunity to work with a client or a customer might be through email. And so, companies were noticing, hey, we're not seeing quite the level of professionalism that we thought. Not all of our employees have a great, command of the language as we want them to. Some of them are so much better in person, but we didn't have that luxury for so long. Now we've got this hybrid technique. A lot of people are working more often from home, which is really a great benefit for a lot of people. But is it possible that your written word is holding you back? Is it possible that the words you choose, like I mentioned before, grammar and punctuation? So companies were saying, hey, we need our employees to really be on track so that the message they send is clear, concise, using appropriate vocabulary. And so I was kind of pulled into the Zoom world to translate my business writing class to Zoom. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be a snoozer for the audience, for my students. How can I possibly? But it has worked out beautifully. As a matter of fact, a class that was only supposed to be 2 hours with some of my clients has turned into a 10-hour experience because the students were saying, hey, this is relevant. I can apply this immediately. I teach some things that are very simple concepts, but wow, I see so many professional business communications making these, what seems like a small error, but the impact to the audience or to the client has been profound. Mm-hmm. So that's been a lot of fun to work with people that are working from home and then brushing up, making small adjustments, 1% better, 1% better. So that's been a lot of fun.
So for a company that's maybe thinking about going down the road of providing this professional development, can you talk a little bit about what that looks like for you to work collaboratively, either with teams or individuals?
Absolutely. Well, I like for my training to be as relevant as possible. I want it to be, I want the students to understand this content directly applies to me and my writing. And so when a company pulls me in first, we kind of talk about their company. I want to learn a little bit about the culture of the company. Exactly who are they communicating with? Where is their focus? Where are they seeing mistakes? And honestly, you can look at the results and kind of work your way backwards. Hey, you know what? Some of our employees are noticing they're sending out messages and not getting responded. They're not getting even anything back. You can kind of work that direction of, what are you seeing and what are the results? And then figure out, okay, I want to work backward from that. I want to know and see real life examples. So I don't care. I like my email inbox to be blasted with examples that I'd say, hey, what are you seeing your employees doing? Can you show me what that looks like? Of course, I'll incorporate those materials into my class, changing the names, of course, protecting identities, but allowing the students to see, hey, when we see these progress reports, this is an example of, one that maybe could have used a little bit of tweaking or organizational modification so that it would be more effective. Maybe even it's a formatting issue. You could have used bullets and made this content so much easier to understand. So we talk about all kinds of different angles of ways to modify the writing, but I want to make sure that my customer and my client see the impact and that it's relevant to them. And it's easy to apply.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about this, but how does a company know that communication is the issue? Are there certain signs or red flags that they might see?
Well, I asked the question, and we do this in class, and I learned a lot from the students, really. Each class is a learning experience because the students share their own relevant examples. And I ask a question like this: I hate getting emails that blank. And I am able to hear, once the students kind of break the seal of, okay, it's okay to share. And I want to hear about your pet peeves. And they share and share and share. And they say things like, you know what? I hate it when there isn't a subject line. That drives me crazy. I don't like it when someone types in all caps. It means they're yelling at me. That's really rude. I hear things like that. So I'm learning from the companies what they're seeing just from their internal communications as well as external. Oh yes, I guess just to piggyback on what I mentioned before, look at your results. Look and see where things are falling through the cracks. Look and see where you're seeing maybe, hey, this doesn't work for me. But when I ask students to share in class what mistakes they're seeing, that pretty much tells me where we're at with this particular group. I had a student just an hour ago in the business writing class that I just taught for a local company, and she shared she used to work for a company where the CFO would reply to her message in purple font, Comic Sans purple font. And she said, I knew he was the CFO and very competent. That was no question. However, the way the message looked sent a message to me of almost like a juvenile approach to things. And so I always looked at it with a little bit of a different slant than I would just because of the color choice or the font choice. So I thought that was pretty interesting too, to hear, real life examples of what students are seeing and what frustrates them, because it eventually affects the way they feel about the message and ultimately how they feel about the person who wrote it.
That is so interesting because, usually when you think about communication, you think about the content, but some of the things you just talked about, the font color,
yes,
formatting with the bulleting, subject line, those are things that people don't realize, I think, up front, how much of an impression that makes on somebody.
Absolutely. And whether you took a writing class or not, let's say in high school or even in college, these aren't things that were ever part of that content. I never learned about how to write an effective subject line. So we kind of back it all up, which is really cool. And I like to quote, there's a gentleman, Jonathan Hirschberg, who trains a communications company in New York City. And I love to share the quote because it's so relevant. He says, if I get an email that's full of errors and I know nothing else about you, what's to make me think that you will treat my business in the same way you treated that message? It sends a big message because we're communicating always. We're always communicating, whether we like to think it or not. And so even every word that we use, the font that we use, the way that's organized, is it all one big block of text? All of these things contribute to how professional you appear. So it reflects directly upon your quality of work and ultimately the company as a whole. So where do you want to be, right? Where do you want to be?
That's such a powerful statement. And it really does say quite a bit and pauses you to really think about it before you hit that send button.
Absolutely. And then every once in a while you catch yourself and you go, wow, I just caught that one. How many others got to sneak that? Oh no.
So Lauren, I know you've worked with some companies with this where they've actually seen results come out of the changes that they're making in their communication. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've seen in the past?
Absolutely. Well, students report to me, they are able to work more efficiently with less frustration. They notice that their messages are actually responded to. I have student feedback telling me, I can tell when someone that I'm working with, let's say internal fellow employee, I can tell when someone has been through your course or not. I can tell. And then the great part is also people that have been through and forget things are able to help each other out a little bit, which is really cool. But the overall response is, I'm working efficiently, I'm saving time, I'm frustrated a lot less, and I'm getting the results that I want. And that's what every company wants, right? So
That's great.
pretty
Well,
cool.
yeah, first impressions make such a big difference, and even ongoing impressions to
Yes.
build those relationships, and communication is just a key part of all of that.
Absolutely. And then you think, wow, how often am I making these mistakes, and how could I step it up just a little bit, and what that will do to you and your relationships. It's really,
That's great.
really a wonderful thing. Who would have thought that business writing online could be fun and impact your work so profoundly, but it's true. It's possible.
Well, great. Well, Lauren, thanks so much for joining us to talk a little bit about effective communication during June's Effective Communication Month. We appreciate that. If anybody watching this is interested in bringing Lauren in-house to work with your team or individually as well on communication, we'd be happy to connect you with Lauren. You can send us an email at corporatetraining@kirkwood.edu or give us a call at 319-398-5623. Thanks, Lauren. It was great talking with you.
Great. Thanks. Nice talking with you. And I hope to meet all of you soon.